police focused intently on a phone signal, hoping to locate a missing couple before it was too late. They arrived at a shipping container, which was secured with multiple padlocks and chains. Hours passed as they painstakingly cut through the heavy metal. As they finally breached the container, muffled sounds echoed from inside. Was it the voice of a woman who had vanished 2 months earlier? The urgent banging raised questions. Their grim task had been to discover a body, yet now they wondered if they would find her alive. In a moment, filled with tension, the rescuers exclaimed, "Oh my God, could it be Kyla or Jason alive?" One rescuer knelt beside the girl, her voice soft yet urgent. "Just a girl?" They confirmed. "Just a girl. How are you, honey?" As they freed her, they pressed her for answers about her boyfriend. The call came through to Mr. Tatum, Kyla's voice barely a whisper at the other end. "Mr. Tatum, we found Kyla," the officer said. Instantly, panic gripped him. "Where's my son?" he asked, dreading the reply. "We haven't found him yet," came the chilling answer. This dramatic rescue unfolded on the property of a seemingly respectable real estate agent. Todd Kohlhepp, a man whose demeanor screamed all-American, was not as he appeared. Beneath the surface, he harbored a dark secret he had killed at least 7 people. At first glance, Todd Kohlhepp appeared to be a successful 30-something with a thriving business. Yet, his charm concealed a sinister reality. He was a predator, having committed heinous acts that left a trail of devastation. "I was not meaning to," he would later say, a chilling testament to his disconnection from his actions. As one of his kidnapping and rape victims sat across from him in court, the atmosphere was tense. The judge and jury struggled to comprehend the mind of a serial killer. In a disturbingly calm manner, Kohlhepp presented himself like any other businessman, yet this conversation was anything but ordinary. The dialogue shifted to the grim topic of kidnapping. "I've still got a kidnapping charge." "I ain't going nowhere," he stated with chilling nonchalance. It was a discussion about rape, yet he remarked, "I had recovered." Then came the topic of murder, a reality he faced with unsettling ease. "How many times did you shoot him?" The prosecutor pressed. "I shot him twice," Kohlhepp replied flatly. "Okay, in the chest?" "Okay." "He dropped forward?" "He dropped forward. I went around him and shot again," he recounted, revealing his calculated brutality. Todd Kohlhepp was no ordinary salesman. He was a cold-blooded killer. He emerged from his garage and shot Jason Tatum 3 times in the chest. Jason fell lifeless to the ground, and Kohlhepp buried him in a shallow grave, leaving a family shattered in his wake. The anguish of losing a son is unimaginable, yet Mr. Tatum faced this reality as he processed the horror of his son's fate. In Spartanburg, South Carolina, the man sitting across from the detectives was a mystery. Investigator Linda Papadopoulos sought to unravel the complexities of Todd Kohlhepp's mind. From the beginning, Kohlhepp's life story was a troubling one. His childhood revealed early signs of deviance, and investigators noted the patterns of violence that marked his youth. Todd Kohlhepp was born in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and later moved to Spartanburg with his mother. Court records depicted a disturbing childhood. Even in nursery school, Todd exhibited violent behavior, instilling fear in those around him. As reports suggested, he was known for his difficult demeanor and frequent trouble at school, but these issues hinted at a much darker reality. Many children faced challenges, yet Todd's actions were far more sinister. Early in his life, he developed a penchant for torturing animals, a chilling indicator of his future. Records revealed that he once bleached a goldfish to death simply because he desired a gerbil. This act of cruelty was not isolated. It illustrated a chilling pattern. He poured Clorox onto a goldfish, relishing in its suffering. Law enforcement officials recognized that such behaviors in children are alarming red flags that should never be ignored. Kohlhepp's childhood was rife with turmoil. He shot pellet guns at dogs, demonstrating a disturbing thrill in causing pain. Experts warn that children who exhibit such behaviors often harbor deeper psychopathic tendencies, calling for immediate intervention. Any child who derives pleasure from inflicting harm poses a significant threat. Todd's unsettled upbringing included multiple relocations and a series of family disruptions. His mother's numerous marriages resulted in a fractured sense of identity from an early age. He was not initially a Kohlhepp, he was born Todd Sampson. After his biological father left, his mother remarried, and his stepfather legally adopted him. Despite this new identity, Todd's violent tendencies only escalated, marking the beginning of a dark legacy. Todd Kohlhepp's early life was marked by instability. His mother married and divorced several times, uprooting him repeatedly. His birth father had left when Todd was very young, leaving a void that would shape his troubled psyche. When his mother remarried, his new stepfather legally adopted him. Thus, Todd Sampson became Todd Kohlhepp. Yet, under this new name, his troubling behavior only intensified. In school, Todd exhibited aggressive tendencies, punching holes in walls and shredding his own clothes. Teachers noted his disturbing behavior, recognizing early signs of a deeply troubled mind. An unsettling portrait began to emerge, revealing the mind of a young sociopath. Authorities had attempted to intervene, sending Todd Kohlhepp to a mental institution, hoping to reform him and help him understand the disturbing wiring of his brain. After some time, he was released, appearing as a seemingly normal teenager. Yet, beneath the surface, there were troubling signs that hinted at his violent tendencies, including a penchant for aggressively destroying property, both his and others. From an early age, Todd displayed the hallmarks of a budding psychopath. His troubling behavior first surfaced when he was just 11 years old. By the time he turned 15, Todd was enmeshed in a world of pornography, acting out his darkest fantasies. In a horrific incident, he abducted a 14-year-old girl at gunpoint, wielding a firearm with chilling intent. He took her to his home, binding her with duct tape, silencing her cries by wrapping tape around her mouth. In her helpless state, he sexually assaulted her, all while threatening to kill her family. The terror in her eyes spoke volumes. She could see the malevolence within him and believed every word of his threats against her family. This capacity for violence at such a young age, coupled with his history of offenses, painted a grim picture of a young man devoid of empathy, someone who actively sought out the pain of others. Todd's relationship with sex, dominance, and violence grew increasingly complex. The red flags, as law enforcement would later identify, indicated that Todd Kohlhepp was destined to kill. For now, however, his actions caught up with him, leading to his conviction for abduction. Sent away for a lengthy period, he was mandated to register as a sex offender. Yet, as a 15-year-old, he found himself in an adult prison, where he began to take advantage of his time. During those 15 years, Todd transformed himself, becoming Todd Kohlhepp Mark III. He pursued education, attending college, and emerged as a model prisoner. Society and prison reform advocates viewed him as a success story. When he was released at 30, he returned to Spartanburg, seemingly leading a normal life. He attended school, earned his degree, and crafted a new exterior. Yet, the violent monster within remained dormant. After securing a job as a graphic designer, Todd indulged his post-prison passions, collecting guns and motorcycles. His collection included several BMW motorcycles, and he often boasted about his growing arsenal of weapons. Just 2 years after his release, a dark cloud loomed over Spartanburg. Though Todd Kohlhepp seemed reformed, he harbored a deadly secret. He was a killer. The chilling atmosphere was palpable. During a tearful plea to the judge, a friend of Jason Tatum stood in anguish, reflecting on the loss of a man who would have given his last shirt to anyone in need as he rode his motorcycle along Interstate 85 in South Carolina. On November 6, 2003, Todd Kohlhepp was headed to Chesney, home to a motorcycle shop that would soon be etched in infamy. This date marked one of Spartanburg County's most notorious homicide cases, unfolding at Superbike Motorsports. Superbike Motorsports was a popular motorcycle dealer and shop in Chesney, South Carolina, where 4 employees were working that day, including Max Scherzer, the owner. Alongside him were Jay Morant, the shop manager, Yanni Alonso, Scott's mother, and mechanic Freddie Freeman. Tragically, all 4 would meet a horrific fate that day. In a brutal act that would forever scar the community, 4 individuals were shot and killed inside a motorcycle shop. Todd Kohlhepp, a familiar face in the establishment, often engaged in conversations about motorcycles, a passion of his. However, on this fateful day, Todd felt a sting of disrespect. He was acutely aware that his knowledge paled in comparison to that of the other staff members. His persona and discussions lacked authenticity, a facade that began to crack under scrutiny. He attempted to impress the shop employees, portraying himself as someone more knowledgeable than he truly was. This pretense did not go unnoticed, and when confronted, Todd felt belittled, as if he had reverted to a powerless child. An eyewitness recounts the atmosphere of Superbike Motorsports on that day. He described engaging in his usual tasks, trying to stall for time and ensure that paying customers did not suffer any delays. It was a quiet day, not particularly busy, and he did not anticipate any violence. As he worked on engine repairs, he felt a growing tension. He did not want to unleash chaos in the store, yet the seeds of anger were being sown. Feeling humiliated, Todd's rage began to surface. The anger that had lain dormant within him, the dark impulses that had previously led him to harm others, were now bubbling to the surface. On that day, he arrived secretly armed, intent on exacting revenge. Todd's goal was not merely to kill. He aimed to annihilate everyone in his path, the staff, and any bystander who might intervene. With chilling precision, he executed 4 individuals in under 30 seconds. As he boasted later, he felt a sense of pride in his lethal efficiency. The 4 victims, Yanni Alonso and Freddie Freeman, were found inside the shop, while Max Scherzer and Jay Morant lay outside, just beyond the front door. In the aftermath, investigators sought to understand the horror of that day. They pressed for details, asking if any of the victims had looked at Todd or spoken to him in their final moments. The chilling response revealed a complete detachment from the gravity of his actions. Todd, in a cold and mechanical manner, recalled the events without a hint of remorse. It felt to him like a video game, engaging yet devoid of humanity. He described the experience as intensely focused, likening it to a state of immersion. Despite the horror he had inflicted, no suspects were ever questioned, and the case quickly grew cold, leaving the community in shock. 9 long years passed before Todd Kohlhepp would finally disclose his role in the tragic events at the motorcycle shop in Chesney. He attempted to downplay the incident, claiming, "I did not want to shoot," a statement dripping with irony in light of the massacre he had committed. When arrested, he seemed eager to share his story, but in 2003, he remained an enigma, far from being a suspect. While he worked on reshaping his identity into that of a businessman, buying and selling properties, he submitted a letter to the South Carolina Real Estate Commission, revealing snippets of his dark past. In this correspondence, he tried to minimize the implications of his earlier crimes, attempting to cast a shadow over the grave nature of his actions. He wrote of a past incident, presenting it as a mere lover's quarrel gone awry, rather than the violent confrontation it truly was. At just 15, he had faced his girlfriend over suspicions of infidelity. Though he had a gun, he claimed it was for protection against gangs. The legal outcome left him on the sex offender registry, a label he sought to redefine. He concealed the true nature of that horrific encounter, crafting a narrative that painted him as a victim of circumstance rather than a perpetrator of violence. This manipulation of his own history was a skill Todd had honed over the years, showcasing a chilling ability to reshape perceptions of himself. He cleverly navigated the complexities of his past, hoping to evade the judgment that rightfully belonged to him, leaving a trail of unanswered questions and unhealed wounds in his wake. As people read his letter, they may have felt a sense of sympathy for the boy he once was, but the truth remains, Todd Kohlhepp's darkness ran deep, and his past was haunted by violent acts that would eventually surface once more. In a chilling attempt to downplay his past, Todd Kohlhepp supporters insisted it was merely a blip in an otherwise rehabilitated life. Yet, the truth was far more sinister. At just 33 years old, Todd Kohlhepp had skillfully manipulated his way into respectability. It was a terrifying feat. He diligently crafted a new persona, earning a real estate license that marked the beginning of his reinvention. His ambitions soared as he delved into aviation, obtaining a pilot's license. In the eyes of the community, he was a success story, deeply engaged in a flourishing professional life. Eventually, he established TK Real Estate, where he served as broker, managing nearly a dozen agents who sold homes on his behalf. By 2020, Todd Kohlhepp appeared to have it all. The real estate market had been exceptionally kind to him. He became the go-to figure for buying and selling properties in Spartanburg, Anderson, and Woodruff, South Carolina. To the untrained eye, he embodied the quintessential American neighbor. Yet, lurking beneath that facade was something deeply unsettling. Todd had purchased a sprawling house along with a 100-acre farm. His obsession with firearms raised eyebrows among neighbors. In Woodruff, where he owned vast land, residents often heard gunfire echoing through the night, hundreds of shots ringing out without explanation. Curiosity mixed with unease as they pondered, what is happening down there? Perhaps it was merely target practice, but Todd's frequent presence at the property, especially in the evenings, left the community questioning his true nature. Signs of his peculiarities began to surface, prompting whispers of concern. In the midst of this unsettling atmosphere, Todd Kohlhepp sought help. He posted advertisements for assistance, which caught the attention of a couple, Paul George and Amanda Rodriguez. They hoped to find supplemental income. Many real estate firms recruit individuals to stage homes or manage cleanup efforts for properties about to hit the market. Todd was no exception, advertising for cleaners to assist him at his farm. The unsuspecting couple arrived at Todd's expansive farm, a picturesque setting that seemed to promise a friendly encounter. Upon meeting him, they found him to be welcoming and amiable. From a sociological perspective, Todd's indicators of success, his large home, respectable job, and nice car should have instilled a sense of safety. These traits typically do not evoke fear. However, behind the mask of a psychopathic murderer, those very attributes became a facade that concealed a menacing reality. In need of help with cleaning and gardening, who would suspect danger from someone like him? Todd's outward success and social skills disarmed those around him, allowing him to blend seamlessly into the community. Yet beneath this veneer lay a man capable of extreme violence, harboring dark intentions. The moment Todd met the Coxies, a sinister turn was imminent. He first encountered Megan Coxie, inviting both her and Paul to his property. As they arrived, a shocking incident unfolded. Todd claimed that Paul had brandished a knife. In an unsettling twist, he described how Paul pulled the knife, leaving those listening to wonder about the truth of that moment. In his defense, Todd asserted that the couple had a criminal history and were attempting to deceive him. The tension escalated as he recounted the incident, dismissing the gravity of the situation. When questioned further, Todd's demeanor shifted. He insisted that Megan was aware of Paul's actions, implying complicity in a dangerous game that would soon spiral into a nightmare. Witnesses recalled seeing a man who flaunted a lavish lifestyle, driving an expensive car that most could only dream of affording. Their intentions were clear. They were going to take something from him. But what followed was nothing short of a nightmare. The chilling reality set in when he pulled the trigger. How many times did he shoot? In a cold confession, he admitted to shooting the victim twice in the chest. As the man collapsed forward, he circled around and delivered one final shot to his back. But the nightmare was far from over. Todd Kohlhepp's intentions were sinister. After brutally killing Paul, he turned his focus to Megan Coxie, abducting her and imprisoning her in a locked container that belonged to him. As he recounted the events, he explained his confusion as to why Paul returned, having left to get food for Megan. He found it absurd, especially after she had attempted to rob him. Kohlhepp's next chilling words revealed his dark intentions. He made it clear that he wanted Megan's husband dead. With Todd armed and experienced in violence, Megan found herself at his mercy, trapped without any means of defense. While locked away, Megan had managed to hide a lighter. In a desperate act, she attempted to ignite a fire in the building. Todd's grip on her life tightened, holding her captive for nearly a week as she struggled to survive. This dark chapter unfolded near Christmas in 2020. Todd mostly left her alone, but his presence loomed large. Each time he returned, he found evidence of her attempts to escape. Megan had even broken her leg in a futile fight for freedom. Surrounded by a staggering $100,000 worth of ammunition, Megan's situation became increasingly perilous. The thought of the destruction that could ensue if a single round were to fire sent chills down the spine of those who knew the danger she faced. When Megan finally mustered the courage to fight back against Todd's hold on her life, it proved to be a fatal mistake. In a brutal act of violence, he shot her in the head, likely killing her instantly. With her death, Todd had now claimed two victims, Paul and Megan Coxie. Their bodies would later be discovered buried in shallow graves on Todd's property. Although the couple had been reported missing, weeks of searching yielded no leads. Meanwhile, Todd continued to go about his life, promoting his real estate business on social media. On platforms like Facebook, he presented a facade of success, convincing those who knew him in person that he was a respectable member of the community. Yet behind the carefully curated images, a darker reality lay hidden. The persona that Todd Kohlhepp projected was merely a mask, concealing the fact that he was a torturer and a murderer, ready to strike again without a second thought. What was to prevent him from repeating his horrific actions? Having already kidnapped and killed Paul and Megan, he had previously placed an advertisement seeking help around the house, drawing in unsuspecting victims. It was this same tactic that led to the next victims, Erica May and Jason Tatum, who responded to his ad. This would mark the beginning of the end for Todd Kohlhepp, as well as the tragic fate of a promising young man named Jason Tatum. Jason was known as a good kid, eager to earn an honest living. His life took a turn when he met Erica May, and their relationship blossomed. Their paths crossed through Kyla's mother, and after a year of friendship, they began dating. Their bond deepened, leading to a weekend when Jason brought Kyla home to meet his father. That Saturday, just days before their disappearance on August 31, marked the first time Jason's father met Kyla. He learned that they had only been dating for a couple of months, a brief yet significant period in their lives. As the days passed, their absence became more alarming. 5 days went by without anyone seeing or hearing from the couple, raising red flags among their loved ones. Meanwhile, Jason Tatum and Erica May had only been dating for a couple of months when they vanished without a trace. For 5 agonizing days, no one had seen or heard from the young couple, leaving loved ones in a state of despair. The mystery surrounding Jason Tatum and Erica May deepened with each passing day. After a flurry of unanswered texts and calls, Jason's mother took the heartbreaking step of filing a missing persons report. Her son was gone without a trace. In the report, it emerged that Jason and Kyla were headed to meet a man about a job opportunity. On August 31, Todd Kohlhepp had invited them to his property in Woodruff, under the pretext of needing assistance with some outdoor cleanup. Upon their arrival, Todd spoke animatedly about his work, setting the scene for what would soon become a harrowing nightmare. His intentions, however, were far from benign. Tragically, Jason's life was extinguished within hours of their arrival. Todd's modus operandi revealed a deeply manipulative and controlling nature. His first act after abducting the couple was to eliminate the strongest threat, which was typically the male counterpart. This ruthless tactic served a dual purpose. It diminished any physical challenge he might face, given his considerable size advantage. More importantly, it instilled a paralyzing fear in Kyla, making it clear that resistance was futile. Kyla found herself entirely at his mercy, just as Megan had before her. In a cruel twist, Todd confined her within a shipping container while a discarded phone lay nearby, a potential lifeline for her. This phone would prove crucial in the unfolding investigation. As detectives delved into the case, they recognized the importance of securing cell phone records. Yet, the absence of any immediate signs of distress forced them to navigate a complex web of legalities, relying on court orders that could delay access to vital information. With no emergency declared, the waiting game began. Investigators faced the daunting reality that phone companies could take weeks to release records, time that was slipping away as the search for Kyla intensified. In the harrowing 9 weeks that followed Kyla's disappearance, a disturbing reality took shape. Todd not only buried Jason's body, but also taunted Kyla by revealing its location, tightening his grip on her psyche. Meanwhile, frantic searches were underway, with police and families scouring every inch of the landscape for any sign of the couple. For the first 30 days, search parties traversed rural roads, hoping to stumble upon a vehicle that might have veered off the path. They parked along the roadside and combed through the underbrush, seeking anything that seemed amiss, unaware of the horrific truth lurking just beneath the surface. Jason's mother and her husband joined the search, covering even more ground across the county. At that moment, they held on to the hope that Jason and Kyla were merely lost, oblivious to the chilling reality of Jason's fate and the torment Kyla was enduring. Inside the dark confines of Todd's shipping container, Kyla was subjected to unimaginable horrors. Chained and trapped, she was forced into a nightmare, becoming a prisoner of Todd Kohlhepp, who relished in his control over her. Each day followed a horrifying routine. At around 4 p.m., Todd would return home, extracting Kyla from her confinement. He would assault her before returning her to the container, a cycle of abuse that stripped her of hope and dignity. There was a ritualistic quality to his actions, a disturbing blend of physical and psychological torment. Todd wielded fear as a weapon, boasting about his lethal capabilities, instilling a terror that consumed Kyla's mind. Imagine the horror of being shackled while your captor relishes in recounting his violent exploits. The chilling obsession behind his words created an atmosphere of dread, fueling his sadistic desires. For Todd, his control over Kyla was not just about domination. It was a perverse source of gratification that transcended the physical, feeding an insatiable need to impose his will upon another human being. The torment inflicted upon Erica May was not merely physical, it was a calculated mental torture. Todd Kohlhepp, her captor, reveled in his ability to take lives, boasting about his skills in killing. The chilling reality of being chained, while he relished in his dark proclivities, added a layer of psychological horror. As the events unfolded, it became clear that Kohlhepp's obsession with power over life and death loomed large. The terror of captivity was compounded by his sinister enjoyment in recounting his violent acts, an almost obsessive need to instill fear in his victim. This twisted pleasure was not merely about sexual gratification, it was about dominance. The discomfort of his actions reflected a deeper psychological release, a dangerous high derived from the ability to impose his will on another human being. Reflecting on Kohlhepp's childhood, one could trace a disturbing pattern. His earlier cruelty to animals foreshadowed the escalation of his brutal behavior towards humans. This dark trajectory culminated in acts of violence that would haunt his victims. Weeks later, detectives finally received crucial data from Kyla's phone, allowing them to triangulate her location. This breakthrough provided a window into the last known whereabouts of her phone, crucial in the search for her. Armed with this information, law enforcement began their search within a 3-mile radius of the last cell tower ping. Their initial focus led them to a sprawling 96-acre property in Woodruff, a site owned by Todd Kohlhepp, which would soon become pivotal in the investigation. As they traced ownership back to Kohlhepp, the date November 3 AD 2016 marked a critical turning point in the investigation. A team of officers set out for the property, unaware that Kyla was being held captive within its confines, praying for rescue with each passing moment. On the 5th day of their disappearance, law enforcement officers arrived at a property in Woodruff where they suspected Kyla was being held captive. Unbeknownst to her, a desperate search was underway, and all she could do was hope and pray for rescue. As the search team arrived at Todd Kohlhepp's farm, apprehension filled the air. The detectives braced themselves for the worst, knowing that time was not on their side. In typical abduction scenarios, the likelihood of finding a victim alive dwindles rapidly after the first crucial hours. What awaited them inside the container on Kohlhepp's farm was uncertain. This was the moment that held the potential for Erica May's salvation. The detectives' adrenaline surged as they fought to breach the entrance, driven by the hope that she might still be alive. As the doors swung open, an unsettling absence of odor met them. In a place associated with death, the lack of smell was disorienting. The sound of banging echoed through the air, igniting a flicker of hope amidst the grim anticipation of what they might find. The detectives braced themselves. Could it be that they would find Kyla, or perhaps Jason, alive? The urgency of the situation was palpable. Just a girl, one officer reassured, trying to calm her as they realized she was, against all odds, still alive. The sound of a paramedic's voice broke through the tension. "We're going to get you out of there," he promised, as Kyla was discovered chained like an animal. The relief of seeing her alive was tempered by the grim reality of her chains, a symbol of her harrowing ordeal. While Kyla was rescued, the grim truth soon emerged. Jason Tatum had been murdered, shot 3 times in the chest by Todd Kohlhepp. This revelation shattered the fragile hope that had emerged during the rescue. In a heart-wrenching moment, Kyla confirmed the fate of her boyfriend. "He shot him," she stated, recounting the horror with chilling clarity. Todd Kohlhepp's cold efficiency in his brutal actions left a trail of heartbreak and devastation. Kohlhepp's intentions were clear. He had no need for Jason, only Kyla. She became his unwilling captive, subjected to unspeakable horrors. The depths of his depravity were unfathomable as he derived pleasure from her suffering and the control he wielded over her life. The horror of the situation unfolded for investigators as they learned of the brutal murder of Jason. A detective, tasked with delivering the grim news to his father, found himself grappling with the weight of tragedy that had befallen this young couple. Todd's sinister motives became clear. He had no interest in Jason Tatum. Instead, he sought to dominate Kyla, imprisoning her as his chained sex slave. The horror he inflicted upon her was unimaginable, deriving twisted pleasure from her suffering. Tragically, sweet Jason Tatum had been shot almost immediately upon arriving at the property. A detective, grappling with the gravity of the situation, reached out to Jason's father to deliver the devastating news. In a chilling moment, the investigator approached Mr. Tatum with the words, "We need to talk. We found Kyla." The gravity of the revelation hit him hard, leaving him in stunned disbelief. His mind raced, and the first question that escaped his lips was a desperate plea for information. "Where's my son?" The investigator's somber reply, "We haven't found him yet," pierced through the air. It was Kyla who had led the authorities to a shallow grave where they discovered the lifeless body of Jason Tatum. The conversation felt surreal, as if reality itself had warped. Denial clawed at him as he struggled to accept the unthinkable. No, it can't be, he thought, demanding proof, anything to quell the rising dread within him. Identification relied on the distinct tattoos Jason bore, yet the weight of such a loss hung heavily in the air, an unbearable truth for a father to confront. The acceptance of his son's death loomed over Mr. Tatum, a haunting reality that he could barely comprehend. Meanwhile, Todd Kohlhepp's whereabouts remained a mystery as detectives dispatched a second team to locate him. At Kohlhepp's home, following the discovery of Kyla, the detectives communicated with their colleagues, who were with Kohlhepp, interrogating him about Kyla's disappearance and the nature of her employment. As the situation escalated, word came through, "We found Kyla." It was then that investigators arrested Kohlhepp, the atmosphere thick with tension. The detectives confronted him with the grim reality: Kyla was locked in a container on your property. "She just told us you shot and killed Jason." The arrest was imminent, marking a pivotal moment in the investigation, one that would end the cycle of violence. Yet the pain of loss for the victims' families was only beginning. During the bond hearing, they were instructed to avoid eye contact, confined to silence as they processed the unfolding tragedy. As Kohlhepp was led into the room, a mere row of chairs separated him from those mourning. Anger surged within Mr. Tatum, thoughts racing about what he would do if given the chance to confront the man responsible for his son's death. In the hours that followed, Kohlhepp sat in an interrogation room, initially tight-lipped. But the pressure mounted, and he eventually broke his silence, revealing the locations of more bodies, including those of Paul and Megan Coxey. He led detectives to the grim discovery, recounting how he had lured another couple seeking work to his property. The male victim was disposed of swiftly, while the woman remained until her fate turned grim. Kohlhepp coldly reassured her, saying, "I'm not going to touch you. I'm not a rapist," as he manipulated her into a false sense of security. He instructed her to calm down while he meticulously crafted his narrative. But even more shocking confessions awaited investigators. Ultimately, he sat with them and admitted to being the shooter in a notorious quadruple homicide at a motorcycle shop in Chesney. Kohlhepp opened up about the bike shop incident, claiming sole responsibility for the murder of 4 individuals. A detective remarked how rare such a confession was, a dark twist in an already harrowing case. The detectives were left in disbelief, grappling with the enormity of Kohlhepp's admissions crimes that extended far beyond those initially linked to him, raising questions about the true nature of the man they were dealing with. With each confession, Todd Kohlhepp's body count grew, now tallying 7 lives taken. Under intense interrogation, he confessed to the murders of Paul and Megan Coxey, along with Jason Tatum, and revealed a shocking connection to an unsolved quadruple homicide from years prior. At that time, the victims, a manager, an owner, and a mother, had been in the back of the shop, oblivious to the horror about to unfold. The motive behind his confession was chilling. Kohlhepp sought to assert dominance over the situation, revealing his prowess in a game of life and death. Caught in his web of deceit, he relished the opportunity to show how he had evaded capture for so long. As he confessed, Todd Kohlhepp appeared to revel in the detective's shock, deriving a twisted thrill from the knowledge that he was not only adept at killing, but had successfully evaded justice for years. In a chilling display of control, Todd Kohlhepp reveled in his role as the teacher, educating the detectives on the very methods he used to evade capture. With a disturbing calmness, he recounted, "I had 3 people in front of me." He described the gruesome act with chilling precision, detailing how he shot the closest victim, a mother, 2 to 3 times in the chest. This revelation seemed to serve a deeper purpose. It was a twisted affirmation of his identity, a testament to the power he wielded over life and death. Kohlhepp's ability to manipulate, obscure, and conceal the truth surpassed that of most sociopaths. His recollection of the tactical reload and rapid execution reflected a calculated efficiency. However, beneath this veneer of composure lay a childhood marred by instability and a history of wrongdoing. Yet, in a paradoxical twist, the man who emerged managed to rebuild his life within the confines of prison. He earned a degree and spent 12 years without committing another crime, an indication that he understood the concepts of right and wrong. Despite his attempts at rehabilitation, Charles Carver could never forgive him for robbing him of his son. Jason, known for his generosity, would have given anyone his last possession. The brutality of his murder left an indelible mark on those who loved him, emphasizing the stark division between right and wrong. Kohlhepp ultimately pleaded guilty to the murders he had so boastfully confessed to. His willingness to cooperate with law enforcement became part of a plea bargain that spared him from the death penalty, resulting in 7 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole in 2022. In 2023, Erica May took a courageous step, initiating civil proceedings against Kohlhepp, forcing the two into the same room for the first time since she endured the horrors of being chained and tortured. Alongside others, she sought damages from the man who had inflicted unimaginable suffering. The courtroom became a battleground not just for justice, but for the healing of wounds that ran deep, as victims and survivors faced the man who had shattered their lives.